It starts with an itch and a tingle, and then it builds and expands. And suddenly, all at once, my legs won't let me stand. I scratch till my fingers go numb.
Okay, so hi there, everybody, and welcome to this episode of Suicide Sucks. Yet again, we are not in the camper van for this one because I have Paul Fleming, also known as Doug, joining us, and he is from America. So yeah, yet again, I couldn't really take the camper over there. So we have got Paul Fleming. He's a retired and disabled US Navy veteran. He's a life coach, business consultant, and a published author. He's also a seasoned holy man, spiritual advisor, and healer. Now, he talks openly and candidly about how he's confronted his fears, anxiety, PTSD, and suicidal thoughts. And I am very excited to have him here in the studio with us today via the power of Zoom. It's important to say as well that it's not all about that. He's also got 6 children and 9 grandkids. That's going to keep anybody busy. And he's an author, and his latest book is called A Date with Suicide. Now, as my listeners will know by now, the first question I always ask, brilliant, he's just holding up a copy of the book. I'll put the links in the show notes. The first question I always ask anybody that comes onto the podcast is, can you tell us about one of your darkest days?
Well, the first one that comes to mind is a day roughly 40 years ago. It was a week before Super Bowl Sunday, and I got a call from one of my shipmates who I hadn't seen in a few years. I had already been medically discharged from injuries from the Navy, and I was in the process of being retired. And I got a call out of the blue from Petty Officer Second Class Randy Smith, a yeoman, who served on board the USS Dallas with me, SSN 700, made famous by Tom Clancy's book, A Hunt for Red October. Yep. I served on that boat. Actually read Tom Clancy's book while we were deployed. Anyway,
wow.
I got this call from Randy Smith, and he says, hey, I need to talk to you. And I'm like, all right, listen, I've got a wife and kids growing, and I'm new to fathering and all this stuff, and trying to figure out the civilian world. So Super Bowl's next week. What do you say we get together and we can talk all we want? Can sit at the pub and drink and watch the Super Bowl. So week goes by, pick up the phone, call him, and this is back when there was phones on the walls, landline, right?
Yeah.
No cell phones. And this lady answers. I don't know who she is, and she's a little belligerent. She starts cussing at me, and I'm like, listen, lady, who in the hell are you, man? I'm returning Randy's call. He said, called me up last week, said let's get together, and I said I'll call you this week, and we'll hook up, because I was in Boston, Massachusetts at the time. And he said that's where he was. So this lady, after she cusses me out a few times, kind of phone goes dead. And I said, look, lady, either put Randy on the phone or I'm hanging up. And she says, you don't know, do you? I said, I don't know what. And she does another long pause. And she says, oh, you're that guy that he called. You're that damn guy from the Navy. And I'm like, what the fuck is this lady talking about? And she says, you really don't know, do you? I said, no what? She goes, he hung himself right after he got off the phone with you. That was my opening salvo to veterans suicide. And to this day, I can't listen to anything with regards to the Super Bowl without having a visceral reaction. So in my book, A Date with Suicide, there's a chapter in there called Who's Your Randy? So when I talk to veterans, I say, who's your Randy? Who was your first veterans suicide?
Wow. I like that about having who's your Randy. I like that prospect of, well, I don't like it, but it's that hindsight. I mean, obviously you had absolutely no idea when you had that conversation with him.
Right. And then it stuck to me like a bad virus for my entire life, until I came to terms with it. And I really didn't come to terms with it until I wrote the book, which leads me to an absolute belief that telling your story is suicide prevention.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. And that's what we constantly talk about on this podcast is that, it's through talking about it and through sharing your story that somebody else can think, "Oh my God, I'm like that. That's me." I connect with that. So that was your first, hopefully, of not too many more conversations where you found out that more veterans had.
Well, I wish that were the case. A week before my book came out, and again, I can't promote this thing enough because I have veterans and non-veterans calling me up, reaching out to me and saying that this book saved their life. All right. But a week after the book came out, and I want to make sure I follow the timeline right.
Mm,
The guy I served with calls me up. He's on an airplane, and he says, I'm reading your book online. And I'm like, okay. And he says, I got to tell you, when did this book come out? I said, about a week ago. And he said, well, a week before your book came out, another one of our shipmates committed suicide. And the sad part, or the really, really painful part, is him and the guy who called me were buddy checking each other. And they had a pact that said, if you get there, call me. Okay. He
yeah.
never called. And these two guys were in constant communication. The guy that was flying back from this funeral
Mm,
damn near committed suicide. Okay. Been working with him for, been working very closely with him. And we just crossed the Rubicon, so to speak, of getting him to the toughest piece for a lot of folks. And that's the spiritual piece, because I preach as loud as I can that to counter suicide, you've got to learn to reclaim the four corners of your existence: your physical, your mental, your spiritual, and your emotional bodies. Okay. Because we're in so much pain, whether it's mental, physical, emotional, or spiritual. That's what in part leads us to suicide. So the counter to suicide is reclaiming those four corners of your existence. And
mm,
for a very, very dear friend of mine who is a borderline atheist, right, finding faith is a tough road to hoe. Okay. But he accepts now that he needs to find spirituality. And again, spirituality and religion are night and day, right? Okay. Spirituality is one thing, religion is an organized, so on and so on. And I
yeah.
don't disparage either of them.
Yeah.
I simply say you have to find your spirituality.
Mm. And do you think that that is something, these four pillars, that is specific to veterans, or and if so, why?
No,
Or is it for everyone? Is that how anybody can get through?
no, the suicide rate among civilians is exploding. Okay, when I say there's 100 suicides a day in the United States of non-civilians, that's a number that could probably be 500, maybe 1,000,
Mm,
maybe 2,000. No, nobody knows. Just like the veteran suicides in the United States. While the VA, staunchly claims it used to be 22, we're at 17. That number is so bogus, it's stupid. Operation Deep Dive, which is pushing 10 years now, an independent study, easily debunks the VA's numbers
mm,
and easily takes us north of 50 per day. But anybody, especially veterans' family members, veterans' caretakers, they are at such high risk for suicide. It's crazy, right? And it all comes back to the same thing. We all need to find and reestablish, and I like your word when you said pillars, the four pillars of our existence, physical, mental,
Mm,
spiritual, and emotional welfare, right? If we
mm,
can, when a person has a handle on those four corners of their existence, the probability of suicide is extremely low.
mm. And for somebody like me, who I quite like, like rules and self-help books and things like that, this is something tangible that to me people can latch onto with these four pillars that you can actually hone in and work on. I really like it. I think I might have to take this forward to my Things to Live For membership as well. The the fact that you can tackle each of those and find ways to explore them. So tell me, for you, I mean, you've obviously explored these four pillars. How have you tackled each of those in terms to help yourself potentially?
Yeah. So the hardest one for me to overcome was the spiritual piece. All right. I have a deep, deep faith in the baby Jesus, but I'm also Native American. So my Native American beliefs, believe it or not, run parallel to the teachings of Jesus Christ, the baby Jesus, right? Okay. If you look at Native American beliefs, they have the same, three spirits, the Father, Son, the Holy Ghost. It's called different names, but it's the same cornerstone, so to speak. All right. But following an organized religion, all right, raised our children Catholic. I'm a proud supporter of the Catholic Church in the good stuff that they teach, not the other stuff that we're not going to get into on this podcast.
Yeah.
Okay? All right. When I say it about all religion, okay, once man sticks his fingers in the middle of religion, everything gets all fouled up. Okay.
Hmm.
So I just encourage everybody to find their own path. And that's what I needed to do. What I didn't realize was the farther away from faith, my own beliefs that I got, the deeper my depression, my anxieties, okay, my physical pain became. And once I started understanding my spiritual beliefs and then walking down that path and chipping off things I didn't buy into and accelerating things that I did and molding my own religion, so to speak. And again, I'm not molding a religion, but I'm molding my beliefs that
Yeah.
somebody else look at and say, oh, you're religious, blah, 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 blah. All right. Once I did that, the physical, the mental, and the emotional beings followed. Now, again, I had
Wow.
to work on all of those things. But for me, because in my soul, in my core, excuse me, I'm a deeply religious person, but I was afraid of it. I was
Yeah.
afraid what people would think of me. I was terrified that if I said, I believe in Native American, blah, 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 that I would be scorned, scolded, ridiculed, right? Again, I'm on the outside, people look at me and they say, this guy's got so much confidence. How could he be afraid of anything? Well, again, inside of us is a different world from what we display externally. All right. I'm a master at hiding my fears, right? And I can hide it behind the greatest weapon every veteran is taught, every military person is taught: anger, right?
Yeah.
Anger is the great motivator, especially in the
Absolutely.
military field. So once I learned to understand these things and I started pushing away or pushing back on these other things that were part of my life, and they still are, and started allowing my faith, my belief to come forward, I started reading about it. And like I said, chipping away things I didn't follow and so on and so on. It opened up the rest of those pillars.
Yeah. I think that is so interesting because from what I see, the people tend to approach anything through one of the other. I'm going to keep calling them pillars. So, like, people might try and work on their emotional well-being or their physical, they go to the gym, all of these things. But actually, I love the fact that you're basically saying, sort the spiritual out, whatever that may be to you, and the rest will follow. or it will pave the way. I love that. That's really great. And again, I'm going to take this on board in this membership thing I've got going because it's something, I mean, absolutely. I will be advocating the book, as I did with Bobby's as well, absolutely brilliant. I haven't got it yet. I will do. I have read the other snippets that you sent to me, which were phenomenal. I mean, the one about the bus. Maybe you could talk us through that, but that was incredibly interesting. But so the four pillars, love it. Can you tell us a little bit about your experience of suicidal thoughts, suicidal ideation, anything that has, led you to be so passionate towards, helping others, really?
Yeah, that's a long conversation.
Yeah.
Let me try to carve it down into a brief paragraph or three. My first book, this is my first book. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, 2,442 Steps to Crazy. Right. What it talks about is the abusive childhood that I grew up in. Okay. Now, I took all of my childhood and stuffed them in a box and packed them as deeply as I could, and I never talked about them. Now, I've been married to my wife for pushing 40 years. Okay. My wife's an absolute saint. Now, is my wife really a saint? She is to me. Okay. To me, she's a saint. Okay. Anybody that can be a veteran's caretaker, especially a disabled veteran's caretaker, is a saint. All right. But for 40 years, I've been roughly 40 years. I hope she's not listening. Okay. It's 30 something. Let's just say 40. Okay.
We'll let you off.
Right. And like I like to say, we've been married for 40 years. Okay. I never said a word about my childhood. Not to her, not to my 6 kids. Every now and again, a little something would slip out like, you got no idea. Okay. All right. You don't know who I am. You don't know me. All right. Well, in my path of finding my faith, I kept hearing, you need to tell your story. And that's the last thing I wanted to do. The last thing on this planet I wanted to do was tell the world. The last thing I wanted to do was tell the world. Right. Okay. However, the baby Jesus or his messengers kept chirping in my ear, tell the damn story. Or when you get up here, we're going to have a conversation. I said, oh, God. All right, listen, I've done enough in my life to answer for. I don't want to be answering for that. So I sat down and started writing. Okay. It took a while. But when the book was published, I handed it to my wife and turned around. It took her a few days to read it. She didn't speak to me for about a week. She couldn't stop crying. She couldn't believe not only what she didn't know, but that I never said a word. And she's having these flashes of all these things she's done over these years. Okay. And realizing why they triggered other things. Okay. Crazy, huh? When I told the story, I could feel the relief. So that started walking me down the path of what? Finding out why I was suicidal. But here's the crazy part. My wife says that I didn't live through abuse. I was tortured. And when she said that, I kind of leaned back and said, yeah, she's probably right. That was torture. Okay. But believe it or not, I never thought of suicide. I was homeless at 14. I was in the military at 17. By 21, it turns out that I was 100% disabled vet because of the injuries I suffered in the military, both physical and mental. Okay. But I still never thought of suicide until I left my first appointment at the VA. And guess where I talk about that first appointment at the VA? Okay. So for me, the trauma that I'd been through in life paled in comparison as to what happened to me when I was transitioned over to the Veterans Administration. In the book and in my life, I tell the story of when I walked out of that building after my first go around with the VA. I'm walking down the street and I said, if this is my life, I'm gonna have to kill myself. I can't live like this. And in hindsight, that is truly the first time I contemplated or even thought about actual suicide. When I talk to other vets, they kind of draw back and they say, son of a bitch.
Wow. And I mean, so when you had those feelings, well, how old would you have been then?
22.
22. Wow. And when you had those feelings, what did you do with that then? I mean, as a 22-year-old, you've not got the benefit of hindsight and all the work that you do on yourself. But so
Yeah,
what did you do with those feelings? Did you bury them? Did you act on them? How did you cope?
right. That's a great question, Mick. I mean, that's a great question, right? What did I do? You know what it was in hindsight? It was one of those moments, where you have an aha, but this aha is in a bad way. You know, it's like, I guess it would be like taking that first shot of crack. Again, I've never done drugs, so I don't know if you're shoot crack or whatever it is, but that first euphoria, except in reverse, right? You know how you see something, all of a sudden it sticks to you? Well, that was the defining moment. I had never thought about suicide until that moment, because now I'm looking forward, right? Now, remember, I'm now a disabled veteran. And again, 40 years ago, if somebody said, I'm not even sure you're 40 years old, but what if you said you're a disabled and then fill in this 40 years ago, man, you might as well have leprosy, right? You may as well have had AIDS in 1980, right?
Yeah.
Because all of a sudden whoa. That's what having the label disabled meant in those days. In fact, when the letter came in from the VA and I opened it and says, you are now a disabled American veteran, I remember going to crumple that letter and that rage coming up in me. And as I started to crumple it, remember that voice I keep telling you about? Yeah, you don't want to do that, stupid. And I unfolded the letter, and that's a long story, but okay. That's where it really hit me the hardest and the first.
Yeah. I can imagine that, going from, I mean, it's literally like having the tablecloth pulled from the table, isn't it? It's like
Yes,
everything changes
yes. It
and
is,
your
it is literally one
identity.
of those moments in life where you can look back and say, I remember the space shuttle blowing up. I remember JFK. I remember my first thought of suicide.
Mm.
Okay. It's literally one of those defining moments.
And that moment was defined because your identity had changed,
Yes, I'm now
partly.
a disabled veteran.
Yeah. Again, just highlighting how important it is that how we identify ourselves, from our experiences and all of that trauma that comes with that. But so you were in that position. I mean, what did you do for a job and things? How did you what happened next in your in your life? I
Yeah.
mean,
So again, back then, PTSD was, what was it? It was went from shell shock to Vietnam. It was, I don't remember what Vietnam was, but Vietnam vets are really the ones that brought PTSD into the world and demanded that it get the attention that it was due. All right, I'm a product of two grandfathers. One rode submarines out in the Pacific, and the other landed on the beach in Normandy. Okay, so the shell shock to Patton slapping a soldier to current, right? PTSD and mental health was nowhere near on the radar the way it is now. Okay. So what I didn't know was how severely handicapped I was in my mind, mental health wise. The physical part was what I kept fighting for, right? Fix me. What the hell's wrong with me? And the VA finally said, listen, Mr. Fleming, go home, lie down, and don't do anything for the rest of your life. You are 100% total permanent and severe veteran. If you do anything, you're going to make your situation worse. So just go home, lie down, and that's it. Well, of course, I followed orders in the military, but once they handed me my DD 214, I listen to my wife most of the time, but that's about it, right? So I tried to go to work, didn't work. Okay, I couldn't work for somebody else, and so many veterans have that same issue. They just can't fit in. I keep preaching to fellow veterans. Stop listening to people that tell you you've got to be a civilian. You're not a civilian. We are our own demographic. We're veterans. Be a veteran in the civilian world. Don't try to be a veteran. It's never going to work. It's like telling a mother once she has an empty nest, you're not a mother anymore. What? You know, how do you stop being a mother?
Yeah, good analogy. Right? Yeah. Yeah. And it's really it's the individual that places that mental handicap there. I like that phrase as well. It's like you're putting yourself in that position of being mentally handicapped almost.
Yes.
Because of the situation.
Yes. The trauma of being told you're a disabled veteran, okay, is a piece of mental health trauma. Okay. So you've got to find a way to work through that. Okay. Now let's add suicides. Let's add all the rest of the stuff that it brings. Okay. What I did was I desperately tried to work for myself. I have failed so many times, but I never quit. Okay. I've had successes. Okay. But why do we always focus on our failures? I don't know, because they teach us. I don't
Yeah.
know, right? Okay. But I ended up working for myself, and that was the only place I could survive. But again, I did it not understanding the severity of my mental issues. In fact, with my wife for a handful of years, and I looked at her and I said, there is something wrong with me. There is something wrong with me. I need help. And I looked at my wife and I said, baby, find me a broad to go talk to, word for word. Okay. Find me a broad to talk to. I can't talk to a man. I need a woman. She found me a woman, and I spent years privately talking to a woman. For anybody who says the VA won't pay for it, oh, give me a call. I'll make sure the VA pays for it. Okay. But that was my starting point, and it was a long road. Oh my goodness, it's a long road. But I found a starting point by acknowledging to myself that something was wrong. And that's kind of where I started down the path of mental health. Fast forward forever, decade plus. The VA pulls me in, says, we need you to meet, blah, blah, blah. The VA mental health tells me you have severe PTSD. You know what I said? No, I don't. 18 months later, all right, how do we fix this? And they said, you don't. And again, I said, okay, we're going to fix this thing. Okay. Well, I can't tell you that I've fixed what I am, because there are pieces of me that are still terrifying. Okay. The anger in me is the hardest thing for me to control. Okay. So I have to watch for all the triggers, and I have to be aware of my surroundings, but not in a fashion that I used to be. Now I've learned not to engage. I've learned to break the engagement and move. Okay. And just not get into conversations or situations that will trigger my anger. Okay. Again, when you go through the military, anger is the key tool to produce a lethal weapon. Anger. Okay. Nobody kills in happiness.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
You have to get a warrior to understand anger so that they will finish the job. Right. Okay.
Yeah.
What you can't do is you can't take away that trauma. It's always with you. Okay. The only thing you can do, at least from where I stand.
Yeah.
Okay? I don't want to say anybody else can fix it or so on. Okay. But from where I stand, I needed to learn how to live with it and how to manage it. And that's where, I don't like to say that I'm successful, because I'm terrified that I'll jinx it. Right. But I know that I'm better now than I was yesterday.
And that is key. It's not about the past, the future. It's about the now, isn't it? It's about yesterday. You can go as far away as that, but that you're better than yesterday. Yeah, I love that. And the whole anger thing. It's about, I suppose, learning not to react to those triggers as well, isn't it? I assume that it's not just because you can't just avoid certain things, can you? Not necessarily all of the time. Oh, you can. Okay.
Yes, you can. Yeah, you can. I want to make sure I hit on that.
Yeah.
Yes, you can. Okay. You have to be in control of yourself, which means you have to be able to get out of those situations, because the consequences, if you don't, are too severe. Okay. And that was a hard lesson to learn, but it doesn't matter. If I'm driving down the highway doing 75 miles an hour and something's going sideways, I can pull off onto the median in the middle and end it. Just, I don't mean end me, I mean stop it.
Yeah.
Okay. Will I get arrested for driving on the median? No problem. But at least I didn't continue down the path I was going. Okay. I'm not saying you have to do something illegal. I'm just saying that you can move, stop, change, turn around, walk out, so that once you feel that trigger start to move,
Yeah.
get out.
Yeah.
And for guys like me, it's not 6 pounds of pressure. Okay. It's the drop of a speck of dust and boom.
Yeah. And it's really difficult to even withdraw yourself from something like that, because there's all those feelings of that come with that of, oh, don't be so stupid, you can do this, you can carry on, you can, and all of that internal chatter that comes with all of these instances. But yeah, to learn that you can, I like that, to just withdraw yourself. That's not the right word, but it's not avoiding, it's removing yourself
Yeah. Well,
from
you
that
said it perfectly.
situation.
All those voices. What I
Yeah.
learned to do was push the voices that I didn't want to hear to the side and listen to that voice that's never wrong. Inside of us is that voice, okay? That guardian angel that's with every one of us, okay? That voice, you have to, it's a lot of work, but you have to find a way to listen to that voice, because that voice is never wrong. And when it says to you, hey, you're being an ass, okay? You might want to listen.
Yeah. It's that instinct that all of us, we've lost the use, we've lost the ability to listen to our instinct. It's like we need to retune the radio type of thing and get that connection. Yeah.
Wouldn't that be finding your way back to your own spiritual path, right?
Absolutely.
There is so much to spirituality than, kneeling in front of the baby Jesus and saying a prayer. There is so much more to it. That's a ritual. That's a routine. Okay. But there's so much more to spirituality. And once you really dig into it, man, it's fun. It's exciting.
Yeah.
There's a lot out there in the spirit world that few people really understand. But if you take the time to start following those paths, man, it's exciting. It's fun stuff.
I couldn't agree more. I've literally just been listening to it was a masterclass, and it was all about synchronicity and instinct and coincidence and energy healing and all of this. And I was I was absolutely blown away from what I was being told. And they even got you to do a little exercise where you held energy within your hands. And I went into it thinking, that's what. But then when I was doing it, I was like, oh my God, I can feel this invisible like force. It was incredible. Yeah, I think
So
it's key.
So going down that path, I do a lot of work on spiritual healing, okay, and physical, emotional healing. All right, a vet that I cleared him in his house, his wife, my wife and I did it roughly a month and a half ago. That veteran's life spun on a dime. He slept for 12 hours that night, got up the next day. His whole world changed because the darkness that was sticking to him, he couldn't get rid of. We went in, cleared it from him, okay? And his whole life has changed in 6 weeks. And people are looking at it going, what the hell did you do? And he goes, I had Doug come in and clear me, all right? And it's as
Wow.
simple as that, but from my side of the table, it's a little bit more work and it's a little more complicated. But
Yeah.
once I started down the path of learning my Native Americanism, okay, and I like to use Chief Fool's Crow book. If anybody wants to read a great book on Native American healing, Chief Fool's Crow, he's been dead now 30, 40 years, but he lived to be 99 and he healed thousands and thousands of people the old way, the Native American way. That's the path that I follow.
Wow. I'm just writing that down.
Chief Fool's Crow. It's 2 books out about him. Great stuff.
Yeah.
Absolutely fantastic stuff.
Mm.
But when I originally read his books, And it's not written by him. It's written by an author who studied him for decades, out on the Lakota Sioux reservation. Anyway, when I read his books, I could feel the power pulsating inside of me. And then when I went out there and found the right mentors and so on and started learning how to do these things, how to protect and so on and so on, the rest of those 4 pillars followed. Okay. So when you look at somebody that's struggling emotionally, and you look at them and you say, listen, there's a piece of darkness stuck to you. You need to get rid of that. And they say, how? Well, there's a lot of ways you can do it, or you can bring somebody in to do it. All right. Once you peel that darkness off of them, I mean, it's literally, it's life-changing.
I love it. It's enlightening. Let me take you back to, so you said that you'd said to your wife about, make it so that I see abroad, in your words. So you went along and obviously, it's taken some time. Was that like talking therapy then? Was it?
Oh, it was a mental health provider. Yeah, it was a mental health therapist, right? Something I swore I would never do. Kind of like meditation, I'm a man, baby. I'm a man. You don't meditate.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, I meditate. Oh, I meditate. Okay. Let me tell you how I meditate. I couldn't take the anxiety anymore. Okay. It was at that point. All right. It's like, I can't live with this. I can't do this. And here comes suicide, right? Okay. It's like, F it. So I said, all right, they keep telling me to meditate. So I said, I am not sitting. I can't sit cross-legged. All right. And I ain't sitting there going, oh, listen, not disparaging anybody. Okay. You can say as many vowels as you want. Go to Hawaii. That's all vowels, right? They only have 4, consonants? It's all vowels. So say A-E-A-O-U all you want. All right. I wasn't doing it. I'm not doing it. Okay. So I sat there in my chair and I said, all right, what's behind this thing? So I'm supposed to quiet my mind by listening to my breathing. This is an absolute true story. Okay. So I put my head back. I turned on some Native American music, nice and quiet. And I just focused on my breathing in and out. 3-4 minutes into it. And again, quieting a mind like mine is tricky. Okay. All of a sudden, I realized I was someplace else. And then I realized it. My mind kicked back on and boom, I'm right back at myself. And I look, it was like 3-4 minutes. And for a second, 2 seconds, my anxiety was gone. And I'm talking about the nasty barbed wire tumbleweed that ran through my insides like there's no tomorrow. Okay. 2 seconds, 1 second, 3 seconds, it was gone. And I said, I'm in. Okay. And every day from there forward, I would meditate. Again, I didn't do the kumbayas, but you do the kumbayas, God bless you. Okay. But for me, it was about quieting my mind by focusing on my breath in and my breath out. Let me see. In through the nose, out through the mouth. And that's all I focused my mind on. And from there, I eliminated anxiety. Permanently? No. Okay. I still get it. I got it last night. And what did I do? Pulled out my sage, my sweetgrass, cleansed myself, and sat there and quieted my mind and got rid of it. Okay. Like you said earlier, energy all around us. Okay. We pick up all kinds of stuff. You got to learn to protect yourself. But, you can only do it so much and it's still going to get at you. And then I learned to get rid of it. Okay. So now I have tools to battle anxiety, right? I got off all the medication the VA wants to pump into you, clonazepam, you name it. Okay. I said no more. And I've learned to do it my way. Well, not my way, the old way.
That's incredible.
That's like that meditation story.
I
don't look like a meditating guy, do I?
No, but that's what's so brilliant. Because
this is wackadoodle you brought on your show.
It's like, but the thing is with things like that, it's like, because I advocate spending time in nature and stuff as well. But meditating, or let's just say, calming your mind and quietening the voices, it's free. You can sit there in your own home and again, do it in whatever way works for you. And it's free. But for people who haven't ever done it before, it is blooming difficult to start because those voices are so blooming strong, aren't they? But like you've said, it might have been 2 to 3 seconds, but what I've learned is that obviously the more you do it, it's like with anything, it's like muscle memory, I suppose. You get longer, better, Yeah, absolutely. So that is definitely something that we can agree people should try, and it will help, especially with anxiety.
Yes.
Mm,
Yes. And for me, that was the starting point of becoming the seasoned holy man.
mm, mm. And what does that really, for people who have never heard of that phrase, what does that put it into a few sentences for us, what seasoned holy man really means?
So, granddaughter Crow, a medicine woman from the Navajo Nation, coined that phrase and gave it to me. Okay. She said, "You are a seasoned holy man, and that's how you need to move forward." Okay. So I've always been trying to come to terms with what that means. The real answer is kind of really long. All right. It's a very long answer. But at the end of the day, to me, being a seasoned holy man is about understanding portions and pieces of the Native American spiritual beliefs. Because again, I would have to live a couple hundred years to understand it all, right? Understanding the belief in the baby Jesus, pulling them together, learning how and knowing how to work with energy, my own energy, other people's energy, and then the big one, understanding how to remove darkness. Okay. And I mean darkness. One of the things that's always been around me is all kinds of things, for lack of a better word, we'll call them demons. Okay. Again, there's many levels of energy. All right. And dark energy can be anything from, the 5 years a husband and wife argue with themselves, creating this negative energy that just starts out as a speck and over time becomes a giant ball that ends up becoming a poltergeist. Oh my God, did he say a poltergeist? What's a poltergeist? A poltergeist is nothing more than a ball of energy that grew to a point that it developed a piece of a conscious. Okay. And when the first poltergeist got into my house and tossed this heavy iron plate that my wife puts hot stuff on, okay, across the kitchen, and it didn't bother me, and I could see what it was. And my wife says, "You're going to get it out of here, right?" And I says, "Yeah, I'll do that tomorrow." Okay, I was getting ready for bed, and my bedtime is 8:30, so I'm going to bed. All right, and the next day I get up and did all the rites and rituals and so on, and cleared it and took it out of there. So for me, a holy seasoned man is about having. And be careful how I say this. I don't want to disrespect anybody who's done so much more than me. Okay, that's learned enough that has the courage and the confidence to go out there and do battle on behalf of the side of white light. Okay. So what I do is I help people overcome internal darkness and external darkness. And again, darkness can be as bad as demons or as small as a tumbleweed of negative energy, right? When we say good things, it's positive energy. When we say bad things, it's negative. And I'll close with this. There's a gentleman in Japan who did this experiment with water. Okay. They would talk all kinds of nastiness to this glass of water. You seen this? And they would talk all kinds of positive, loving, nurturing stuff to this glass of water. Then they froze it. They took the frozen out and they looked at it under a microscope. This was black gook and this was beautiful snowflakes. Okay. Now that's a scientific experiment. And again, was it Einstein that said energy never, energy never, energy only changes, it never goes away. It only changes form, right? Okay. So that's in part what I do. I go after the dark energy, get rid of it, take it to where it's supposed to go, or bring in forces that, will
Yeah.
take it to where it's supposed to go, or neutralize it. And how do you neutralize it? The simplest way I tell everybody, listen to what, the Native Americans have been saying for thousands and thousands of years. Sage, tobacco, sweetgrass, and cedar. The four elements combined neutralizes, for the most part, dark energy. Will it chase a demon out? No, they'll grab it and start smoking it. But the lower level stuff, okay, it'll push it away. Also push away good spirits. All right, so you got to be mindful. But if you want to clear yourself, grab some sage, the right sage. It's got to be harvested in a good way. Okay.
Mm.
Sage yourself, sage your house, and so on. But that's part of what I do. I go out there and I clear people's houses. I get rid of dark stuff. My wife and I, and some other folks from time to time. But and to me, that's the fun part of being a seasoned holy man. I actually enjoy going out there and, putting darkness into place.
That's fantastic. I
I
love
can
it.
relate a lot more to dark energy and the spirit world than I can to the living. Okay.
Yeah.
Living always confuses me.
Yeah. Okay, so
Well, Nick, how are you liking this conversation?
it's brilliant. I'm loving it. It's always, honestly, every episode brings so many different things. It's incredible. So
Yeah,
going
but if I'm not your favorite episode, I'm not coming back. Yeah, I'm playing with you. Your mate's got to be liking me.
Okay, so going back to that phone call that you had, was it Randy? I've
Who's
forgotten. Was
your
it
Randy?
Randy? Yeah.
Yeah.
So going back to that, um that was what prompted you to write the book. Is that right? Have I remembered that right?
In a long number of decades, yes.
Yeah.
Yes, that was
Okay.
the catalyst that ended up with me writing the book.
And so how did you go about writing this second, is it your second book or have you got more than that?
So I have more books, but Date with Suicide is my second book, yes.
Okay. How did you
By
go
the way,
about?
my next book is called Mysteries at the Wyndham Inn. Okay.
Oh,
It's a version of real life and a little bit of fiction, but it talks about a lot of the stuff that we're doing. All right. And
right.
this Wyndham Inn's been around for hundreds of years and so on. Not as much, nowhere near what England has for old buildings. But for us, it's an old building.
Yeah.
It's only about 2 miles from me. Okay.
All
But a friend
right.
of mine went in with his ghost hunting group and did a couple of shows there and stuff. And he sees all, he's talking about all these spirits. Anyway, I decided to write a book about it because, again, writing this stuff is tough. All right. But it turns out that people say I'm a pretty good writer. Look, you tell me I am, I'm going to keep going, I guess. Right. But the Mysteries at the Wyndham Inn it goes along all the stuff I'm talking about clearing out dark energy and all that.
Oh,
But it's a
wow.
hell of a lot more fun than telling stories of torture and so on.
Well, yeah, I can imagine. Yeah. But so you're the book that, just hold it up again. There we go. Just so everyone, because I will be putting little snippets on. So A Date with Suicide, how long did it take you to write that? And what was the process? Did you
40 years.
4
40
40? Oh, you mean because, yeah, okay.
Well, let me tell you. Let me just give you the background. I know where you're going.
Yeah.
I barely got out of high school, and I mean barely. All right, I was in the military at 17, in part because a judge wanted to see my enlistment papers. Okay, I like to say, there was a well-dressed man on a robe sitting on an elevated bench who was encouraging me to come back with my enlistment papers. Okay, anyway, I barely got out of high school. I didn't learn to read until the mid like 2005, 2006. All right. I couldn't read. All right. I mean, I could read enough to get by, but I couldn't read. All right. So I had to teach myself to read and so on and so on. I'm
Wow.
extremely dyslexic, and I mean extremely dyslexic. Words jump. All right. Words that, like this is a word, but I don't see that word. I see something else. Okay. So it's a wild adventure. Now, imagine somebody that can't spell, that can barely read, okay, that didn't pass an English course to save his life, right? I couldn't tell you the difference between an adjective and an adjunct professor, right? No idea. Now I got to sit down and write this book. Thank God for computers and spell check, right? Okay.
Yeah.
One thing I did in high school is I took 2 years of typing, right? And everybody said, this will never pay off for you. I said, yeah, but I got credits. Yeah, but I got 2 credits, right? Got the credits. I'm going to get out of here. Okay. Holy cow, did that pay off? Because I can type like a bat out of hell. My first book took me a couple of years. I wrote it no less than 4 or 5 times and threw it away and started over and cussed and swore I was never gonna, blah, blah, blah. A Date with Suicide was about half of that. I wrote it a number of times and threw it away. Very, very painful, very emotional. But what I didn't fully understand was how healing telling the story would be. Okay. For me. Okay. And then watching others makes it that much more easy to live with the demons of my past. Right. Okay. Learning the editing process. Okay. Oh my God. The people in the editing world, this is a whole nother level of insanity. These people are out of their minds. Okay. Try to have a conversation with these college boys. What a nightmare. right? They talk in a language that I'm telling you, it's easier to understand military jargon than it is to understand the publishing community. Okay. These people are absolute wafers, right? So I self-published, but that path alone was expensive and brutal. Okay. But as I've done with go home, lie down, you're a disabled veteran, don't do anything, my no then applies now. Okay. So every time I ran up against these obstacles, it just made me more resolved, not to publish the story, but to win.
Yeah.
Okay. So I focused on the win, not the agony of getting there. All right. Again, if you want to end the pain and the suicidal thoughts, focus on winning, not the agony of getting there. Okay. Well, that's what I did with publishing. All right. And then when the book was published, I sat there and clicked every 5 seconds waiting to see who bought the damn book. Okay.
Oh,
Another
torture.
stupid mistake. Okay. So don't do that. Okay. You know, a book is like raising children. All right. When they're 50, they're finally going to figure it out. Right. That's when they'll be grateful for you. So write the book, print it, and just let the next generation enjoy it. Right. I'm not saying the books haven't sold. They have, and I am extremely grateful for that. But the process of publishing, you know, listen, I've got many folks now coming to me, a lot of veterans, and I am helping a lot of veterans and non-veterans, especially spouses. Okay. Write their story, and I'm encouraging them about all the things I've learned and how to steer them in directions. And once I brought in some people in the publishing community that were worthy of being around veterans, that's when I started putting this group together that kind of helps other veterans do it. But again, it was an endeavor. Okay. That like boot camp. Listen, to me, boot camp was easy. I don't want to go do it again.
Yeah.
Okay. But
and you got there, you succeeded, you won.
Yes, you can't beat me.
Yeah. So it has been absolutely fascinating talking to you. Before we end, so you've got, you've obviously got another book in the pipeline. What else have you got? So say for the next 2 years or whatever.
Yeah, I have 5 books in the pipeline. 3 or 4 are coming out this year. Book 2 of the Crazy series, people have been clamoring for this. Every time my wife goes out in public, she's like, "When's your husband writing the next one?" Okay, it's these things take a lot out of you, so they take a little bit of time. Book 2 of the Suicide series is titled Anger. Okay, and it's solely focused on anger. Okay, so those books are in the pipeline. Mysteries at the Wyndham Inn is going to be the next book out. I'm writing a lot of articles. So if anybody out there is looking for someone to write a short story about their organization or about a person, the article that I just released is going to be published in At Ease Veterans Magazine. A fellow vet, young lady that owns that publication, is printing the story called Trees of Valor. All right. It's a 2,500 word short story, extremely emotional, but it supports the Trees of Valor and Lori's movement to get a Christmas tree in every hometown across America with the photos of veterans on it. So if you, Mick, want to become the first group in the UK to be the Trees of Honor, and you want to put that label on your logo, first sponsor of a Tree of Valor in the UK, all right, reach out to me and I'll connect you with Lori, and I'm certain she'll be excited to move you forward.
Fantastic. It sounds like you have got your finger in so many pies that you're definitely keeping busy.
Let's just say I really need to go on a diet.
Yeah. Metaphorically speaking, yeah, because you look very slim to me.
How many people have you met that can have this much humor talking about veteran suicide?
But that, again, as I say, is the key to it. And the fact that you've just mentioned that you're going to write a book called Anger as well, I just love, because it's like, it's in people's faces. You can't escape it. And that's, again, one of the reasons why I called this what I called it, because I didn't want, and I had people say, "Oh, do you think you should? Because it makes people feel very uncomfortable." And I was like, yes. That was the whole point. So,
hey, can I get your shirt
anger.
here in the U.S.?
Can you what? Sorry.
Can I purchase your shirt here in the U.S.? Your
I
jersey?
I have to send it out.
Yeah,
I
let's
haven't,
connect. I got to get one of your
but
sweatshirts. Gotta
yeah,
get it.
I'll send you the link,
Okay.
and we can sort that out. Yeah, definitely. But yeah, they are good. And do you know what? If I wear it anywhere, you can guarantee that somebody will come and speak to me.
Good.
So it proves the fact that, there are people that want to talk about it.
Good.
End
Good.
of, yeah.
God bless you.
Yeah. But honestly, thank you so much. I've had a blast. We've had a laugh. It's been serious in points as well. But
My
thank
trademark's a
you.
point. You got to give me a point. There you go. Power to Mick.
Making sure I'm in the camera there. Yeah. But thank you so much.
My pleasure.
It starts with an itch and a tingle, and then it builds and expands. And suddenly, all at once, my legs won't let me stand. I scratch till my fingers go numb.